Hello everyone, this is a self-service video on contract compliance. So contract compliance in Ariba is enabled through a document called the contract terms document. So the contract terms document is created from the contract workspace. Opening this document will transfer the user to Ariba downstream or P2P. And this is where the actual pricing terms for a contract can be defined. There's a one-to-one relationship between the contract workspace and the contract terms document. So what is contract compliance through Ariba? So contract compliance is a method to help ensure that the actual users of the system buy from the rates defined in the contract in a compliant manner that's defined in the procurement policy. So the pricing terms in the contract will basically be enabled through the contract terms document in Ariba, and this will define how your business will buy against that contract. So the contract compliance or contract terms document within Ariba actually provides the glue or the join between your sourcing contract management process to actually enabling the contract terms, rates, pricing in your P2P module or your buying an invoice module. And this enables an end-to-end process, so you can actually trace right the way through to your invoice, all the way back to your requisition, your purchase order, right the way back to your contract and through to your actual sourcing event. So the actual business benefit is to ensure that the actual savings negotiated through sourcing and locked in via your contract don't end there and actually realize savings rather than just savings in a contract. And realized meaning people are actually buying against that contract. So the contract compliance module or contract terms will ensure that all the spend against that contract, once you've set up in the contract terms document, will accumulate against that contract. It's also possible to report on that spend on and off contract to take the necessary action to address the spend that is off contract. So contract compliance in Ariba should be used whenever a contract's in place, whether it's a goods or services contract. There should be a method, an attribute that you can set up via the contract terms document to ensure that you're using the right buying channel for that category of contract. So that's a high-level description of contract compliance and the document in Ariba, the contract terms document. So now we'll jump into Ariba and just step through at a high level the different components of the contract terms document. So within Ariba, your contract terms document will sit on your contract workspace in the Documents tab. If your template doesn't have your contract terms document already set up in your documents, then you can add the contract terms document from the actions. So I'm now just going to open up the contract terms document. So this is the contract terms document against the contract workspace we just saw before. The structure of the contract terms document is in a wizard fashion, so you've got the different stages to set up the different groups of attributes throughout the contract terms document. And today we're just going to do a quick walkthrough of the different sections and just step through some of the key attributes or fields that are key to setting up the contract terms. So the definitions section will pull in some sections from your contract workspace, contract owner, contract type, and the dates and so on. So the contract type is an important field or important drop down which defines how you want to track the spend against that contract, and there are four options here. Supplier level, this is to track all spend from a specific supplier. Catalog level, track all spend from a specific catalog for this supplier. Commodity level, which will track all spend for a specific commodity code or codes from this supplier. And item level, which is where you define and track specific items from the supplier. The next field I wanted to explain is release required. So where you select yes here, release means does the contract require a purchase order for a supplier to invoice against that contract? And yes means yes, it does require a purchase order. Examples of categories here for where a purchase order would be required would be your standard categories: stationery, IT hardware, IT software, defined services. Where no release is required or no purchase order needs to be created to invoice against the contract is, as mentioned, where a supplier is able to invoice directly against the contract, reference the contract, but without a purchase order. Some examples here would be utilities, certain services, and fixed or recurring fees. The next section, section 2, is the limits section. This is where you can define and set up some controls on minimum and maximum limits, whether it's at a contract level, an item level, and also where you can define specific approvers when a limit, whether it's minimum or maximum, is reached. The pricing terms section is where you would define the actual items if your contract was at an item level, or a rate card. This is where you would define that rate card, or even your specific catalog items, which would be derived from your contract. And in the case of catalogs, for an example, the items would then be pushed into your catalog in P2P Ariba for people to actually add to their cart and buy from those catalog items linked to the contract. Section 4, milestones. This would normally be defined for, say, project work where a project is being delivered over, for instance, 1 year, and there is specific phases of that project that you want to track through predefined milestones as per the contract has been agreed and set up with the supplier. Section 5, access control. This is where you can define the notification list when your contract is nearing the limit, the available limit. So the people who are defined in the notifications will be automatically sent an email to take action when we're nearing the limit. The release access is, as mentioned before, release meaning who can create a purchase order against that contract. So if you want a defined set of users who can create against the contract, this is how you can create that compliance in terms of who can order off the contract. Section 6, payment terms. That is the payment terms defined for the contract. In this case, it's a 60-day payment term. Appendices is any other relevant information relating to the compliance attributes we've set up in the contract terms, which can be added as additional documentation here. And the summary section is all the separate sections 1 to 7 all rolled into the one summary section rather than the wizard view. So the contract terms file would be saved, and once the contract has been published, the contract terms file would become active and transfer those attributes that have been set up into Ariba P2P. So that was a very quick walkthrough of contract compliance and the contract terms document. We'll be creating more videos to go into the specifics of some of the overview information I just talked you through now. So thank you for listening.